Welcome to Vayse, a podcast about weird stuff.
What the fuck is going on here?
Sorry, I
explain yourself.
I just think, could I not have a go at doing it once?
No.
For once?
No.
Okay. Okay, fine. It's all right. Just, yeah.
Welcome to Vayse, a podcast about weird stuff. I'm C Hine, and joining me as always is my old friend and co-host. He's more X than Elon Musk's endless string of abandoned wives and baby mamas. He's more Amazonian than the South American rainforest that Jeff Bezos is enthusiastically and systematically destroying for your personal convenience. And more meta than an Instagram photo of the Facebook page of Mark Zuckerberg's cyberclone. It's Mr. Stephen James Buckley.
Coming at you.
Yeah, when I was practicing that before we started, because I have to practice those, whilst I get them wrong, I introduced you to my empty living room as Dr. Stephen James Buckley. Like I'd given you a PhD.
I don't like how you're comparing me to various sort of social media platforms.
You know, it's slim pickings when you've done 50 intros.
50, it's our 50th episode, isn't it?
It is.
50, God. It's been emotional.
So 3 years ago, we were actually recording them, weren't we? But we weren't releasing them.
Yeah.
But we're actually quite slow compared to other podcasts. We got to 50 in about 3 years.
Yeah, but quality rather than quantity.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. So tonight's guest can best be described as a man of many unconventional talents. When I met him over 30 years ago, he was a pre-adolescent ghost hunter. And since then, I've known him as a musician, a stand-up comedian, a stand-up guy, my best man, a fearless karaoke master, an extraordinary writer, a passionate podcast host, a magnificent magician, a saucy sorcerer, and a far better creator of podcast intros than me. It's my oldest friend and attorney, Mr. Peter C. Hine.
Hi, guys. How are you doing?
Hey, Peter.
Hi,
it's good to have you on the show.
Hey, nice to see you again. Yeah, thanks for having me. You know, I'm a bit nervous about this, actually. I think it's only the second time I've been interviewed alone on a podcast. The first time being the wonderful AP Strange show. But then I was talking about something, like I was talking about Ghostbusters, rather than it being sort of about, you know, like an interview of me as me.
Yeah, well, no, I'm sure you'll be fine. I mean, we're even though we've been doing it for 3 years, we do still feel like we're fairly new to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that we probably get more nervous than our guests do. How does it make you feel to be there without Buckley on the other side of the mic? It is weird because like Buckley is here. He's just not on my side tonight. Yeah, I can see how that could get confusing for both us and the listeners.
It is definitely confusing.
It definitely is. Yeah, well, you know, you guys wanted me to be here to do it, so yeah. Okay. Well, with the confusion aside, let's just leap into where we normally start these podcasts. So, yeah. First of all, we usually ask, how did you get into all this weird stuff? You know, like what was your introduction to the world of the strange and the weird and the mysterious? That's a good question. I mean, my earliest memory of, you know, the supernatural, the weird, the strange is probably Ghostbusters. I would say the original movie of Ghostbusters. Yeah, that's a classic. Yeah, I mean, I know. I mean, how old was I? Like, I must have been 5 or 6, and it'd been on ITV on Boxing Day, and my grandfather had videoed it onto a VHS, and like for whatever reason decided to play it to me. And obviously, it starts with the library scene, and I was absolutely terrified from the beginning. But that terror sort of got me obsessed.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes me wonder sort of how many people of our generation would have answered that question in exactly the same way. Because I know Hine here as well, like he's got a similar experience to you. Yeah,
and Doug Batchelor said on the What Magic Is This? That had been his introduction to ghosts and the supernatural as well. Oh, yeah, I remember that episode, yeah. I mean, I think that most of us of a certain age were introduced to Ghostbusters by that, and if not by the movies, then by the cartoons, because that was everywhere when we were when we were kids. But that got me into like thinking more about what ghosts are, and what the paranormal is. And of course, I went looking in the school library for books about that when I was really young still. And it was in the school library that I found the Osborne Book of Ghosts, which is, I think that for people of a certain age, that was, in the UK at least, that was a major gateway book.
Yeah, it's been reprinted as well, hasn't it? So, because obviously sort of people who are at the age that read it initially are now kind of middle-aged and have got like disposable income, so they're kind of wanting to spend all their money on nostalgia things.
Yeah, they've got the intros by, like, is it Steve Pemberton or one of those guys?
It's one of the League of Gentlemen people, isn't it? Yeah,
and a few others who are obviously influenced by the same thing.
So do you have a favourite story in the ghosts, monsters, or UFOs? Either of them? Was there any that stand out?
The ones that always stick out are the pictures, I think, and sort of what I used to think. So there was the one where there was the guy hanging in the, what do you call it? Was it gibbet?
The gibbet.
Yeah. That was a scary one.
Oh yeah, I remember that one as well.
There was
the ghost in the car. It was like a black and white photograph, and there was like a man in the car.
Yeah.
That was terrifying.
There was a bear in a headdress.
Oh fuck! Yeah.
And someone nailing blood to the ground.
Yeah, a freet or something like that. It was called.
Yeah. And so that was all that stuff really sort of fed into my imagination, and soon I was completely obsessed. And like as a kid, I didn't read a lot of fiction. I just used to get whatever cheap ghost books I could get from the library. Wasn't
there a story about you going to the library at some point?
Yeah, actually there was. When I was about, I don't know, like maybe like 12 or 13, I basically started working my way through all of the weird and paranormal books that were in the Garstang library. And I got into the pretty sort of hardcore witchcraft stuff. And the librarians refused to let me leave the library with the books until they'd spoken to my parents.
Wow, what books were they?
I remember one of them was like some sort of encyclopedia of witchcraft, that sort of thing. And one of it I remember really clearly was called Holy Ghostbusters.
Right, I remember that book. That was about an exorcist, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the one. And that had a load of stuff about... that's where I discovered tulpas, thought forms, creating other entities from the power of the mind and that sort of thing. There was a lot going on in Garstang Library at that time. It's not very good anymore. I went there recently.
Well, I first got the Osborne Book of Ghosts. I think I got all three in one go, but I got them on the day that our family moved to Garstang from Great Corby. Like that day, we went to like this little cafe, and there was at the time there used to be a bookshop in Garstang. Don't look for it; it's not there anymore. But they had all three books there, so I was into that stuff, so I got them there. Obviously, we're not interviewing me. I'm just.
But whilst we're talking about you, Buckley, Hine, when was it that you first met Buckley? What was your introduction to the man who probably is your oldest friend?
Well, I mean, the first time I remember seeing Buckley was when he was playing with my next door neighbour when I was probably about 10 or around that age, maybe.
Yeah, it was around then. But he wasn't your neighbour anymore because you'd moved. He used to be your neighbour, and then you moved a few yards up the road. To
So he now lived down the road.
Yeah.
So I still used to go and play with him, and he went to the same school as Buckley. And I think that the thing that I was obsessed with, and basically the only thing I would play at that age, what was it? About 10-ish, 9 or 10.
Yeah, it was before high school.
Yeah. It was ghost hunting. That was like the only thing I wanted to do, So we used to spend hours and hours doing that. We'd make like ghost detectors out of Lego, Technic Lego, and all that sort of thing. And Buckley got roped in on a ghost hunt.
Yeah, I remember tapping. I remember like because I'd watched. I was really into Indiana Jones as well. Like I remember like going around your house and like tapping on all the walls to find which walls were hollow. Because that's somehow significant. I don't know why, but yeah.
To like secret chambers or
that's the sort of place where ghosts are. Because I think we all brought something to the table, didn't we?
Yeah. It was like a 3-person Ghostbusters team,
and we hunted werewolves. I remember we suspected some of the local teenagers to be werewolves.
Yeah,
that was a thing, wasn't it?
I think we called them the Midnight Gang.
Yes.
Yeah, because we suspected them to be werewolves.
And when I imagine them now, I just think of them as being like the vampires off Lost Boys. Just like
when actually they were probably just little scallies.
Yeah, but I'm imagining them as like cool 80s teenagers.
And so when you were doing these ghost investigations and going around with Buckley in your little group at that time, did you actually ever see a ghost?
Well, I don't think we did on the actual ghost hunts themselves, but it was about that time that I first saw the Darkman, when I must have been like 9 or 10, just moved into that new house up the road from where I used to live. And I think it was in that house that I was sort of upstairs on the landing, and that was when I first saw the Darkman. And I probably saw him a couple more times after that. And I did actually tell my next door neighbor at the time about that. And we called it the Q Ghost at the time. I can't remember why, but that was the name of it. And that's what I called it in my mind until I heard Dara Mason's podcast about the Darkman on Spirit Box one time. And that was sort of when it clicked. And that was after we started Vayse, actually.
So, how is it that you actually came to start Vayse?
Well, that was...
Actually, no, let's rewind a bit. Instead of going straight from childhood ghost hunting to Vayse, was there anything significant that happened in between? Or was it all just a blur?
There was a lot of blur. There was
definitely a lot of blur, yeah.
Yeah. But I think that, significantly, I was very ill as a teenager. And I had meningitis, and I was in a coma for a few days. And I've actually told the story, I think, when we were interviewing, I think it was Steph Quick, wasn't it?
Yeah, Steph Quick, actually, yeah.
She was talking about a near-death experience that she'd had, and I'd also had something which I'd never really considered a near-death experience, but certainly a weird thing that happened to me just before I slipped into that coma. So that was fairly significant. But then after that, I was very much into music and stuff, and music took the place of ghost hunting, because Buckley, you were in, obviously, the first band that I was in, and yeah, that sort of took the place of our ghost hunting group. We were then a 80s or 90s alternative rock group, and then through the 20s, really, my main hobby was alcohol, and I was very good at that. And then it wasn't really until I think, not a lot happened on the weird stuff. And then I think one time in 2022, just before my 40th birthday, was when we went out for a pizza, me and Buckley, and that was when you mentioned a TV series that you've been watching, which was Hellier, and a podcast, which was Penny Royal.
Yeah, I think just before that, you'd introduced me to weird studies. That had kind of primed us to getting back into talking about things.
Yeah, that was. Odd. I mean, that was when we were just coming out of lockdown, wasn't it? Because I discovered weird studies during lockdown. Actually, because during lockdown, I was reading loads of weird fiction. Yeah, that big book, The Weird.
Oh, the Jeff Vandermeer one.
Yeah, the anthology with all the different weird stories in, and I was looking for. I was reading Lovecraft and all that sort of thing, and because it was a weird time. It was a very odd time, and I decided then that I wanted to look for podcasts that would read out. That would be basically just like either sort of studies of Lovecraft, or it would be, just Lovecraft stories read out. And that was when I discovered weird studies. And actually the first one I listened to was about eunuchs, nothing to do with Lovecraft at all.
Yeah, because I think it's fair to say that we, in our conversations between being, children and basically weird studies, we didn't really talk much about the weirder side of stuff during that sort of 20-year period.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about. We didn't necessarily talk about ghosts and stuff, but we talked about weird stuff. We talked about weird fiction and stuff, didn't we? We talked about weird films
on a level of not considering that it might be an actual kind of almost real thing. It was more just enjoying the fiction.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
And so, how was it that you got into Twin Peaks?
Oh, that's interesting actually, because that was me and Buckley as well. Because I remember, I think they'd been on TV, hadn't it? And you had your dad set the video for it or something, or
I'd videoed it.
Oh, you videoed it, yeah.
Yeah, in I think it was like 2002 or something like that. 2002, 2003. It was on Channel 5.
Yeah,
so I taped the first season.
Yeah, and I'd seen an episode, like a small part of an episode on like some weird Sky channel, like the Sci-Fi Channel or FX or something like that. And I'd seen a really small bit, and it was a really weird episode. It was during the Little Nicky era of the second series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I'd said to you, I was really interested about what, and I'd seen Eraserhead at that point and other bits and pieces, and I'd said to you I was really interested in sort of Lynch and wondered about Twin Peaks, and you said you got it on video.
Yeah.
So then I borrowed it, and then you got re-obsessed with it, and then I've been kind of obsessed with it ever since, really. Because we got all those the videos of season 2 from your friend, didn't we?
From my friend Simon, yeah.
Yeah,
and so we copied all of it, and then I think I was about 2 weeks ahead of you.
Yeah,
something like that.
On season 2.
Yeah, I remember. I've forgotten what song it was. No, I think you said. I think it was "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails. I think you said. Yeah, you sent me a text saying something like, "Hurt" by Nine Inch Nails. That's what it feels like to watch the last episode of Twin Peaks, or something like that. It was comparing the two. I was like, "Oh, he's watched it. That's it."
Yeah, the last episode of season 2. That is the How's Annie.
Which at the time was the last episode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
And so, how did you go from the weird studies and the Hellier and Penny Royal and the Twin Peaks obsession to actually starting Vayse? What sort of led you to start a podcast?
Yeah. So I think that it would have been, well, at the time, I think that rewinding a little bit more, just before that, we'd done an album together, hadn't we?
Yeah.
So there was, which we still haven't released, but it was, so what we did was, you wrote music and I wrote a story, and then you played me some of the music and I gave you some of the story, and we kept on letting it
like
evolve.
I had like a very vague idea of like a loose story,
like concept.
I needed someone to kind of turn it into something more and flesh it out, and then we kind of went back and forth, didn't we?
Yeah, and we both enjoyed that, and we were looking for another project really, and so when I watched the first episode of Hellier that I ever saw on my 40th birthday, and I was completely addicted. And then we talked about it loads, and we decided that we wanted to do. I listened then after Hellier. I listened to all of Penny Royal, and me and Buckley decided that we wanted to like do something, like a project, kind of based on that particular flavor of weird, the sort of high strangeness. John Keel and Jacques Vallée and all that kind of thing. And I think at first we wondered about music, I think, or I definitely wondered about a music project or something like that. And then we started to think about a podcast. But at that point, we were very much thinking that we'd do a kind of Lancashire-based version of Penny Royal, find some sort of mystery and then investigate it in the way that Nathan Paul Isaac does. But it turns out that Lancashire just isn't as interesting as, Kentucky. So I think we just one day started recording, didn't we? We had a few ideas.
Yeah.
Because we went up Pendle Hill, and then, just looking for weird stuff, really. And then we decided that we'd go up again after trying Sigil. And I was really scared at that point because I hadn't really at that time confronted the kind of ingrained Catholicism in a way. It wasn't really until I read Condensed Chaos by Phil Hine that I really confronted that sort of the Catholic and very, very sort of Christian idea that any encounter with the occult is the work of the devil and that kind of thing. And it was more powerful than I was expecting, really.
What kind of things do you mean? I mean, how did you come to terms with that?
Well, I think it was. I remember having panic attacks when I first read Condensed Chaos. It was a weird feeling of, I don't know, like, part of it was quite freeing, but part of it was felt very heavy, and it was really scary. And it was very, I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could get through it. And I certainly didn't know if I could do a sigil or something like that. It felt so, even though I hadn't been so I was 40 at that point, and I hadn't been a practicing Catholic since I was like 21 at the latest. So it was half a lifetime ago at that time. And I still had that fear. And it came purely from the Catholicism, because I wasn't doing anything then. I hadn't even done a sigil at that point. It was just the reading of the book. It really freaked me out. And then I looked into it more and more, and eventually I just kept pushing through until I stopped feeling that weird revulsion of it. And it was like a really freeing moment when I could read something like 6 Ways, for example, which I read just a few months later, which didn't freak me out at all. I found really comforting. And if I hadn't pushed through Condensed Chaos like that and confronted that Catholic indoctrination, I don't think I would have been able to get to a point where I could have comfortably done some of the things that I did after reading 6 Ways.
So I get the impression from what you're saying, and also from kind of just observing you really, that although it's ostensibly just a podcast. Vayse has actually changed you quite a lot. How would you say that Vayse has changed you?
There's a lot of things I think that change. I mean, my life is completely different now from when I first started doing the podcast with you. You know, a lot's changed in my personal life. And I think that, weirdly, I do miss that weird thrill that I got reading the occult books when I still had the Catholic indoctrination. There was a very sort of, it was almost like a giddy fear that I had when I read that stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine it being similar to like when you're a teenager and you listen to an album with the parental advisory explicit lyrics.
Yeah, except it was a bit more existential, you know, rather than feeling like I was being a bit naughty. I felt like I was
going to hell.
Basically digging my way down to hell. But yeah, I think there's a lot of things that have changed. I think obviously it completely opened my mind, because I think that if you look at this stuff seriously, and when I say seriously, I mean you've got to have fun with it. You can't take it seriously. But when you look at it and you don't treat it as a joke, you can have fun with it, but you don't treat it as a joke. You have to take the subject matter seriously, or you can't have fun with it. And I think that if you do look at it, and I think if you do try some of the stuff, you know, for anyone who hasn't heard me say 1,000 times, read 6 Ways.
Yeah. I mean, you must talk about that just about every episode.
Every single episode.
Every single episode, you say something one. About that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that book had a massive impact on me, and I think it would have. I mean, do you think it had an impact on you, Buckley?
I liked it, and I like Aidan. I like his approach. I didn't really do many of the things in it, but I did enjoy reading it, kind of. And I felt, to be honest, I feel like the main thing with that book was, I don't know, it made the whole thing seem a bit more accessible and a bit more like, it had like a warmth to it, like you said, like it sort of.
You read it later than me, didn't you?
Quite a lot later, yeah. But like I think it you know, it was evident when we interviewed Aidan that he is very much like his book. You know, he is very warm and inclusive, and that sort of comes out in the book. But I think another important thing for me was like it kind of helped me understand where you were at a bit more.
Yeah, I think that if you try some of the stuff that's in 6 Ways, and you try it with a completely open mind, and like I say, you take it seriously, you don't have to take it like furrowed brow, teeth gritting seriously. You have to have fun with it, but you have to believe in it. You have to, or at least not believe in it. Then I don't see how you can have any doubt that a lot of this stuff is real, or at least that there's a lot that we don't understand, and there's a lot that materialist science and so on can't explain.
And yeah, I mean, this is something that I ask most of our guests about when they come on, about science and that sort of thing. But do you think that science will ever be able to explain this stuff, or do you think it is just the wrong metric to measure this phenomenon by?
Well, yeah, I see why I ask that question of every guest. And I do, because I think it's something important, and I think if I'm honest, it's not something that I have an answer to, which is why I ask it incessantly. But I think that I lean towards the fact that no, I don't think that science will ever explain the phenomena properly.
And why do you think that is? Is it because the phenomena itself is so advanced that we'll never be able to kind of measure it, or that science will never be able to catch up with it? Or do you think it's just the fact that you're trying to science about magic is like trying to dance about architecture?
Yeah, I think, from my point of view, I think the second one. I think that magic is just something that falls outside of scientific method. You know, I don't think that... Obviously, I believe in science completely. I'm not one of the people who says, well, science exists, so, magic exists, so science is wrong. I just think that magic is an entirely different phenomenological thing. There's definite overlaps. And I think that if you're going to understand magic, I think you have to understand some science or believe in some science. Because, say, for example, if you do a sigil for, do the classic one. So do a sigil for like a load of money. And then you go out and buy a lottery ticket and you win, say, like not £1 million, but like £5,000 or something. Then the way in which you won, the probabilities and the sort of physical act of buying the ticket and your collection of the money is all governed by scientific principles. The fact is that I think magic, I see it as something which controlled and pushed the science to end where it ended. It sort of gave things a nudge from outside, from something which science can't and will never explain.
Yeah, I know you mentioned I think it was in our very first episode, you said it's important to be
the first one that we released or the first one that we recorded?
The first one we released. You said something about you need to be a little bit Mulder and a little bit Scully.
I remember that.
But I guess like the analogy you're giving there kind of makes me think of almost like light and sound.
Yeah, I had a similar idea.
And they complement each other, but they're not. They're not measurable in the same way, but there is like a bit of crossover. But from what you've said, kind of about your, how Vayse has changed you, and from just like obviously having been on the journey with you, I feel like the word I'd used or the analogy I used is that like from like I don't know your 40th birthday, it's like you've been dismantled and then put back together again with a different set of. I don't know, a different set of values and a different like outlook, and it's like you've kind of rebuilt yourself using a number of different tools that you found from different books and people that we've met or you've met or encountered along the way. Would you say that's a fair assessment?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it, because I do think that that's what magic is. I think that I can't imagine a type of person who can have a magical practice or who can even dabble with this stuff and remain unchanged, even if it's only in a small way. And obviously I went into it for a while in quite a big way. And I think that the effects are definite. I think that the effects are measurable. Yeah. I don't think that I would be the same person I am now if it hadn't been for Vayse and if it hadn't been for looking into this stuff and if it hadn't been for starting a magical practice.
Yeah.
And do you have a set magical practice now? Are you in the middle of doing rituals or anything like that?
Well, to be honest, no, at the moment. I did a lot last year, and I was meditating a lot, and I moved on from 6 ways to weaving fate, and trying some of the slightly more advanced and longer term rituals from that. And I started to find that the wheels had come a little bit loose. On everything, on my life.
What do you mean by that? Like when you say like the wheels are loose, were you out of control? Was your life out of control?
I nothing as extreme as that. I don't think. It was. You do all. So I always think, even if you're only meditating and that's your entire practice, you're trying to get some sort of change, even if that's only to quiet your mind or silence your mind or to be more mindful or to be less anxious, or you're trying to get change. And I think that if you're doing a sigil, obviously you want change. And I think all of these things, if you're raising goetic demons, which I never did, but I think that you're trying to enact change. And I think that that comes down to, was it Crowley's change in accordance with will, or whatever it was. I'm paraphrasing, but that is what magic is. And I was finding that things were changing a bit, kind of out of control. So I felt like I kept asking for change, and there were so many changes happening and spiraling. And that can be a really good thing. And I think for a while it was. And I think that's what you were talking about when you say sort of dismantling and then putting yourself back together. But if you allow that to continue, and I think certain people can do that and some people can live that life. But I think that I have responsibilities and all this sort of thing. And I had to put the brakes on it a little bit to almost to let things calm down, let things settle. Because if you just keep on changing and changing and changing and changing yourself and your life and the things around you, then you do risk, and you see it happen to people all the time, you do risk losing your identity completely. And you don't want to lose that. You don't want, you want the changes to be for the positive. You don't want to be lost. You don't want to be without your core values.
Sort of untethered. You kind of needed to, so you felt like you wanted to kind of pull back a bit and just sort of stop almost splashing around in the water so much and just letting the ripples calm a bit, so there's not as much kind of going on. And I suppose, I mean, do you think it's something that you'll go back to the same extent that you did like in the last couple of years? Or
yeah, I think so. Maybe at a different time in my life. I mean, I definitely want to start some practice again. I don't know if I'll go into it in the depth I was. You see, the thing was that when I first started out, I really needed change. I really needed to be changed. I felt really stuck and like stagnant. And to some extent I do now, but the things that I need to change now, I need to change practically and scientifically, not using magic.
Right.
Whereas before, I think I felt that I was so stuck, I needed something to catalyze the change. And, I think that it got to the point when, if I'm completely honest about it, that I didn't even necessarily, I couldn't even really think of anything that I wanted to change. I think that I was kind of doing magic for the hell of it.
I think the thing is, like, just from sort of having known you and during this period, I think that is true, but also like it's a hobby in a way. It's like you were learning about it, and you were if you were like becoming an artist, you'd want to learn how to do stuff with pencils, and you'd want to learn how to do stuff with watercolors or whatever, and just try different things. And it's like I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing from my point of view that you were trying out different things and kind of being a bit fast and loose with it, because I guess like you were learning an art,
Yeah, I think so. That the problem is that the art, in the case of magic, is something that you don't necessarily have control of the outcome from. Because usually with art, you have some control of the output. Even if you don't have control necessarily of what you're creating, you can control what you do with it, who sees it, who interacts with it to an extent. So you can keep it to yourself, or you can give it to everyone, and if you're lucky, other people will engage with it, as you know. Whereas with magic, I think that some of the boundaries are a bit blurred as to what is actually happening and who you're affecting and in what way you're affecting people. And I'd done a pretty serious set of rituals in relating to a thought form, which you know about, and I don't think I'll go into tonight. And bits of that started to get quite out of control, and it got bunched in with some crazy changes in my life, which I think I really did need to put the brakes on. And actually, I went to Aidan for help on how to put the brakes on that in the end, as someone who'd inspired the original work that I was doing. But that had been a magical ritual of my own creation. Me and my friend Baz, God rest him. I still miss him, but we had been working on that closely together, and we were just enjoying creating rituals together, and it does become so much fun, and it does become so much like art, that I think that if you're not careful, you can forget that you don't understand necessarily what you're doing. And I think that's where the danger comes in.
Were there times when you felt afraid? When you felt like quite frightened of what was happening?
That's a good question. I wouldn't necessarily say that, because I always had good intention, even when I was just messing around. My idea was always to try to do something that would help myself and others, and I never felt, even when things were out of control, it never felt bad for me. But I could say the same about drinking and stuff like that.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think, again, from knowing you, sort of, when you're into something, you're into it very intensely, and you don't always have like an objective view on what it might be like to other people, or what kind of... and I was just wondering if, at any point so you didn't feel like shit, this is, because I know there's been times in the past when I've dabbled with stuff and I felt afraid, like I felt like freaked out. I don't like this. I feel freaked out.
I don't think I ever got to that though, because I believed it so much from quite early on that if I did something, so I'll give you a small example of it. There was a particular ritual that I was doing where I'd taken inspiration and I devised this ritual. Me and Baz had basically devised a set of rituals, which were directed towards what we imagined to be an incarnated spirit, let's say, under the ground. And I started that ritual and believed it 100% from the beginning, because that's the attitude you have to go into it with. And immediately, so it was this. So I posted like a letter underground and did some bits and pieces like that, and within like half a week, sinkholes started to open up on the road. And 500 yards of from my house, where I'd been doing all this, and so, rather than being freaked out, I started doing sigils and chucking it into the hole, like doubling down effectively on what I was doing. And a lot of weird things like that started to happen. And then like things that happened, like I started to get free books posted through my door and all this stuff that all connected in some way to all these things that I'd been doing. And I still wasn't freaked out or afraid.
Do you think you could? There's a chance you could have. I'm not saying you did, but do you think there's a chance you could have gone the other way and become kind of corrupted and power mad?
Yeah, I think there's always that chance.
For what it's worth, I don't think you're like that.
No,
but like you can imagine that could happen to a person. Sort of, oh shit, I can affect change in the world around me. Fuck it, I'm gonna start.
Yeah, I mean, you see that with a lot of people, even just in the weird sphere now, don't you? You see people, I mean, I don't want to go into particular names, but things like Gordon White, for example, who's written some really solid books and devised some solid practices. But when you look at him now, he's very much gone down a particular road, which I don't appreciate.
I thought you were going to say, I don't approve of.
I don't approve of, no.
I do not approve of it, Gordon.
Yeah. And the same with people like, what's his name, Louvre, and there's other ones. I don't know if that is. I mean, do you think that that's a form of corruption? It's difficult, isn't it? Because you don't know whether these people are like that before they start, but too meek to necessarily show it, and they become emboldened by their magical practice, or whether the things that they're doing actually corrupt them.
But is it that I don't see that as corruption by magic? I see that as corruption by not quite fame, but popularity. Corruption by the fact that you're getting an audience, and the fact that you're making money, and the fact that which isn't what you had. Your practice was private largely, and you weren't sort of you weren't sort of making money off it and having to kind of say shocking things to get.
Yeah, but I think it's all connected, isn't it? Because I don't believe that some of these people, including the ones that we've just spoken about,
I didn't say anyone's name.
No, I don't believe that they didn't do magic to get where they ended up.
Yeah.
And so I think it's all connected in that way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I try not to judge on that sort of thing. And I'm just using those two as examples of people that I've read books by that I like, and then disagree with them when as they are now speaking in 2025.
So you don't know any magic at all anymore, then? Is there anything that you still do, or is there anything that you want to get back into, or can you see yourself starting again?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would start again with little bits and pieces. I think that I would definitely do offerings again, because I just feel that that's good practice, to honor the things around you. And if you're an animist, like I'm a very lazy animist, but it is what I believe, is that all things have the potential to be ensouled. I think that it's only good, and I think that so many more traditional practices from all around the world involve giving offerings to the spirits that are around you, whether that's just the spirits that are around you at this moment, or whether that's your ancestors or whatever. I miss doing that. And the thing that was always the most effective for me, I would say, was meditation. And I've not been doing that recently, and I do need to get back into that, because that's not only a magical practice, but it's just good sense to do it. I mean, you've done some meditation, haven't you, Buckley?
Yeah, I've been off the wagon for a while now, but I try and find other ways in which to do things which are
mindful.
But I'm just shit at meditating.
Yeah,
but everyone is.
Yeah, that's it. That's kind of part of it. But also, I always found a connection to the flow of it all through meditation, and I got really good visuals, weird experiences. I sometimes got a few practices through meditation. Not all the time, not every time I meditated, maybe once in every 100 times I meditated I got something good, but that's still pretty effective.
What would you say the weirdest thing that's happened to you since you started doing Vayse is?
I think it was the pan experience. the woods.
Of course, yeah.
And that was when we'd only just got into it.
Yeah.
That was the solstice in 2022, wasn't it? And I think
Initiation.
and that's actually coming up again, isn't it, next month? And that was the weirdest thing. I'm not going to repeat the story again because you can just listen to episode 7, or you can the interview that we did on Spirit Box.
Yeah.
But
have you had any more experiences with pants since that time?
Not that I can think of, really. I think that there was the dream that I had beforehand. So a week or two before, I told Buckley about this really intense dream I had, which again was in episode 7. And then a couple of weeks later was that time in the woods, with the bellowing and the weird animal behavior and all that stuff. And I think that what you were asking before about whether I was ever scared, I think that time, I was, to be honest.
Have you noticed a difference in the frequency or intensity of weird things that are happening to you, synchronicities, etc., since you stopped practicing magic as regularly?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a magical practice, even just meditation and offerings, which is where I see myself going back to, definitely just plug you into synchronicities. Yeah. It's almost just signaling your willingness. It's like saying, I'm open.
Yeah,
and
open for business.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas if you, like I have been for the last 6 months, if you've just got your head down, bouncing from one thing to the next, really, really busy, not taking any time to really connect with your environment, either your actual physical environment or your spiritual environment or your emotional environment, then I think that you're basically locking yourself off. And I don't know whether I believe that there's less synchronicities happening. I just don't know whether I'm noticing them less.
Yeah, because you've not got that mindset.
Yeah, no, I know. Like I've had a crazy run of 23s in the run up to this interview. Like everywhere I look, there's 23s around, and there's been a few other minor synchronicities, like in the build up to this episode.
Yeah.
And so it's actually been. I mean, what is it, Buckley? Like, 2 months since we last recorded an episode of Vayse.
Yeah, it was the one with Sequoia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
March,
so we're going back to March. So it's May now. Why has it taken so long to do this interview? Because you only need you and Buckley to be here to do this. So why the big pause?
Yeah, I think that it probably just comes down to nerves, really. I mean, we'd had this idea months ago, didn't we, Buckley?
Yeah, I just thought it'd be funny if we interviewed you, but not mentioned that it was in any way weird.
Yeah, and I think that I felt some... I didn't know whether people would think it would be indulgent. I didn't know whether it would work at all. I didn't know whether I'd have anything to say. And I didn't know whether people would be interested. And I did think it was a bit of a slap in the face for our listeners to do this as the 50th episode. But
I don't know. I think a lot of people like the episodes where it's just us.
Yeah.
Like people who, I think that which sounds kind of arrogant, but it's just, I guess we're a bit more comfortable.
I mean, one thing that I think has changed since we started Vayse is that both of us have had diagnoses as being neurotypical.
No,
other way around. Neurodivergent. Yeah, there we go. See, I can't even get that right. It would be really surprising if we'd been diagnosed as neurotypical.
I mean, I was thinking about this, like, what actually my autism diagnosis probably wouldn't have come about, or at least wouldn't have come about so soon if it wasn't for Vayse, because although a few people have mentioned it to me before, it was actually one of our Discord users and friends, Lauren, who, I seriously spoke to about it and gave me some sound advice and sort of actual kind of, practical things to look at and a place to get a diagnosis from and stuff like that.
Shout out to Lauren.
Yeah. Thank you, Lauren, because that was a huge change in my life. But But I don't want to go into details of that because obviously this isn't an episode about me. We're saving that for episode 1000. But yeah, sort of that the two have kind of gone hand in hand because I don't think, one of the things that came about when we first started interacting with listeners on Discord, people were like, "Oh my God, you two are so autistic."
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, maybe we need to actually seriously consider this. Sorry, I hijacked your.
No, that's what I wanted to talk about. Really, that just how that has affected us, and also I think that the other thing is that I think that we probably engage with each other more deeply on a lot of things now that we've been doing Vayse for
I think
years.
I think our friendship has always had like periods where it's not like on and off, but it's like it'll be more intense for a while, and then it'll like go, but it's never like we get back into it like quite easily. It's like because it's very similar to Ted Lasso and Coach Beard. I think like they, kind of
a great comparison.
That's it. It's suggested that they have times in their life where they won't see each other for a while, and then they come back, just as much as before. And it's like, I think it's kind of it's brought us. I think we're always better when we've got a project.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I have a thing where I'm not that comfortable hanging out with people unless we're doing a project.
Yeah,
unless
I
we're
have a
doing
similar
a thing.
I need a hyper focus, and I appreciate it when people will come with me on the hyper focus.
Yeah, and I just like having like a project going on with someone, something to do, even if that something is just like a walk or but just the idea of meeting up and just talking. It's like what. You need to be actually doing something as well, surely. And if it's something that if it's something where you're actually doing a thing, then it's like a creative thing in particular. That's when the good stuff happens. And so I think like it's kind of really it's not been this intense since we were in a band when we were like 14 or whatever.
When we were writing songs and stuff.
But that wasn't just the two of us. That was like 4 people, or I guess a core of 3 people, but then the 4th person came and went or whatever. But like this has been a bit more kind of intense. It's also been a lot more public.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's definitely been the most public.
Yeah, the most public folie à deux that we've done. But I think like it's felt sort of as if it being public has kind of given it more power in a way. And I don't necessarily mean in a magical or spiritual way. I just mean in a sort of almost like an energetic way, as in sort of we're kind of, it's almost like we're getting people who are invested in our friendship. People are like, we're going to pay you £5 a month to listen to your friendship. Which is lovely, which is great. And sort of, I know, and it once you have that, but then you've also got the thing where you've got, and sorry, again, I'm hijacking your interview again.
Don't worry.
You've got the thing of when 2 people go through an experience together, like a bit like trauma bonding.
Yeah.
I don't think it's quite been trauma, although some of the episodes have. One of the recordings in particular was very, very difficult for both of us, and I still get fucking like, I still have nightmares about
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But like in the past 3 years, we've gone through some pretty big stuff together. Yeah. And whether that big stuff isn't necessarily events or terrible things happen to us, but it's shifts in thinking and sort of changes that the brain changes and stuff like that. And it's like, and that's a pretty good thing.
And where do you think that you are now with Vayse, with after all these changes that you were talking about with your magical practice and what Buckley's just been saying about the way that your outlook on things has changed. Where do you think you are now in terms of your relationship with the phenomenon? Not necessarily a magical practice, but just in the whole sphere of high strangeness and the weird stuff.
Well, I mean, there was the weird review of the year 2024. That was, I mean, when you talk about trauma bonding, I think that the recording of that was one of the closest that we've been to that. I know that's not the episode you were thinking of, but it's certainly
that one was pretty funny as well.
Yeah, it was fun towards to do, but I think that I'm a lot more disillusioned now, and it's not a matter of being less open-minded. It's a matter of being sick of the discourse. You know, jaded, yeah. But I still believe that so much of this stuff is real. I still believe in nearly everything I believed when we started Vayse, and probably a lot more. But I'm sick of a lot of the people in the, you know, like, I'm not talking about the general population, although I do feel like
Are you talking about me?
Just a lot of the people, you know, a lot of the people on this call tonight. I think that I think, you know, that the whole, at first, the crazy, say, Twitter discourse was fun. And now it's a lot less fun. And at first, the congressional hearings were fun. And now it's all a lot less fun now that there's a lot of this stuff is being taken so seriously, and so, you know, the whole Corbell and Knapp thing, and the jellyfish. There's still people debating that bird shit smear to this very day, and you know, I think there's a lot of grifters, and
there's a hell of a lot of grifters.
Yeah, and I think a lot of them either want to do people harm or don't care if they do. And that, for me, is difficult to put up with. In doing something like you described it as a hobby, you know, it's something that I love. It's something that I love doing. I love doing the podcast. I love talking to people about this stuff. And I love it when I do bits of magic and practice and that kind of thing. And it taints the whole thing. You know, there's no getting around it. There's no getting away from it. The amount of bad actors that there are, the amount of people who are trying to influence other people, the amount of people who are trying to get an agenda across.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably, I guess it goes hand in hand with the idea of the occult in the truest sense of the word as something hidden, and, you know, the idea that there is always going to be people that it kind of goes hand in hand with a trickster kind of thing. And, you know, we've a lot of people have talked about the trickster idea, particularly like, you know, George P. Hansen in his book and stuff like that. But I think that the trickster extends beyond some kind of non-human phenomenon. A lot of the people are also tricksters. It sort of, by its very nature, everything related to the phenomenon is tricky. It's tricksy.
Yeah, but I don't see any problem with the trickster. I see that as necessary, and I think that a lot of what Hansen writes about kind of backs that up a lot. You know, there's a connection there. I think without the trickster element, there might not be phenomena, and you see it in a very benevolent form in people like Alan Greenfield or Joseph Matheny, people like that, where it's a very pure expression of the trickster. It's very, it's completely,
it's playful.
And completely necessary in changing people's minds and changing people's views. Yeah. And it's more of a positive attitude of the kind I was talking about, where it's not making fun of the phenomenon. And it's not disrespecting it. It's having fun with it whilst respecting it. And, you know, I know that Greenfield and Matheny are both magic practitioners and take that the side of things quite seriously in their own way. Yeah. And yet that is completely different than something like, I mean, we'll take an extreme example of Richard Doty. Or, you know, I think even like Lou Elizondo, people like that, that I would say, I don't even see that as tricksterish. I just see it as deceptive.
It's just like horrible sort of money
It comes from
making.
a very dark place.
Yeah, or just a very like simple place that is just not. It's just as simple as, right, I could make a bit of cash off this.
Yeah.
So, okay. So
it's a bad feeling of manipulation, and you know.
Yeah, I mean, I was unwell a few weeks ago, and I watched a bit of like a Stephen Greer documentary. I forgot which one it was, and it was just like mad. Like the amount of, like, I've not watched that many bad UFO documentaries. I tend to just not watch them if they look like they're going to be shit. But I couldn't really move because I felt unwell, and so I just thought, right, okay, I put on Tubi and then just let it play through all this stuff. So, and I watched a bit of this Greer one, and it was just horrible. It was all so like horribly kind of polished and like acted, and just really like and people love this shit, and people will watch this and think he's the real deal because he's got the way like he's filmed, and they make him look like a superhero, the way everything's framed like that. And it's like, but there's all sorts. And then I watched this other one that was just even more completely batshit insane, and like I've forgotten even what it was. But like,
I feel that some people like Greer perhaps started out with good intentions. You know, I see the sense in the C5 stuff.
C5, yeah.
And I think that the corruption comes later in that kind of stuff.
But I think that they're all kind of, I feel like there's like a network of it where they're all tricking each other, and where they're all also playing into the same game. It's like they've all got this agreement. Well, I'll say something that's sort of ridiculous, and you all act as if, it's like we've talked about with improvising. It's like that as if thing, and is it called as if?
Yeah, no, yes, and is what you're talking about.
Yes, and Matheny's talked about it, right? And it's like that's what it feels like they're doing. When you listen to some of these, like proper,
there's
really
definitely like a kind of LARPing element to it.
Yeah, a lot of these sort of UFO podcasts that are kind of quite kind of bro podcast, let's call them, like, and they're like, whoa, dude, did you see that egg, man? It's insane. And like, but they're all LARPing, and it's like
there's no critical thinking, and they're just
but they're all like almost in agreement, and I don't think they've all sat together and thought, right, let's play a trick on loads of people and make loads of money. They haven't all sat together and done that. They would never admit to even each other that it's bullshit. But it is bullshit, and they know that each other knows it's bullshit, but none of them wants to drop that act and stop. And it's just horrible. It is like,
and there's too much of that going on, and it takes the fun out of doing what I think we wanted to do when we started Vayse, which was to be genuinely curious in quite a childlike way. Yeah. It takes for me, it takes the fun out of it, thinking that people either aren't sincere or don't care, or are being malicious and manipulative.
So would you say that you've been basically kind of jaded and sort of disillusioned by
it's not taken
exposure?
Long either, but then on the other hand, I think that there are genuinely really good people out there.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, on that side of things, who would you say were some of the people that really changed you in a positive way when you interviewed them?
I mean, the first one that I really felt different afterwards was Greenfield. On that one, I really felt like we'd gone to another place. We'd really sort of found... we really sort of encountered the phenomenon in Greenfield. And obviously having Aidan Wachter on was absolutely incredible for me, because I'm such a massive fan of his work, and so many of his podcast appearances are fantastic as well. And I think that I know it's. I think that Joseph Matheny and Sequoia Kennedy, we've interviewed them separately. We've actually interviewed Sequoia twice. I think they're ones that on the surface probably seem more like a Buckley guest, in that maybe slightly less on the magical side, more towards the, reality manipulations. I don't know, how would you characterize a sort of Buckley guest?
Oh,
I think.
Don't ask me how to. Whoever I can.
yeah. I mean,
whoever I can get.
but I think so. For me, the Matheny interview we did was a real slow burner. In terms of when we did it, I thought it was great.
Yeah.
I listened to it a few times afterwards, which I don't often do. But then it seemed to become more relevant all the time, seemed to affect my life more and more and touch on more things and become more relevant the more space we took from it. And I think for the Sequoia one that we just did, I think that changed my view on the emergent phenomena of artificial intelligence. I mean, we're talking in a week now where they've just revealed, what is it, VYS0050 AI, which is just like, it's completely crossed the uncanny valley, got to the other side, and is more lifelike than even life. You can't tell the difference, except that crazy, weird things can happen. Anything can happen. But the problem is that, I don't know. I mean, so that is a kind of a weird side of it, and I'm really into, and mainly thanks to Sequoia and the way that he described these things, I'm really into LLMs, the large language models now, and the incredible properties of language and the way in which it codifies human intelligence and experience, and so much more than we can't understand. And I've read books on it now, and spent hours and hours and hours working on LLMs, looking at, and all of that was started because we interviewed Sequoia, and now it's something that I'm completely obsessed with in a way. Is how language can create reasoning, intelligence, humor. It's as if it is an ancient technology that's been re-tapped into in a really interesting way. But then also other guests that I just think, I don't want to single ones out so that I leave other people out, but people that I can think of that are just sort of people I really enjoy talking to now, Bob Freeman, Steph Quick, AP Strange, these people that I talk to on, or have some interaction with on nearly a daily basis. And that's changed me for the positive as well, meeting all these people with interesting viewpoints, and people who can eloquently explain weird stuff in ways that I would never think to. And
so what you're basically saying is it was the friends you made along the way.
It's
true. And I mean, it like with the analogy of the dismantling and putting back together again, it's almost like, they're part of the reassembly. They're part of the, relearning, rebuilding after, from the Catholic kind of mindset, kind of, you've got like a bit of, this person's, worldview in there, and a bit of this person's wisdom in there, and a bit of this person's advice, and a bit of this person's practice, and a bit of this person's. It's like a whole new set of because these are the sorts of people that you wouldn't have interacted with prior to 2022.
Yeah, and getting the opportunity to interview people whose work I really I'm really into, and I really respect people like Doug Batchelor, Dara Mason, Nathan Paul Isaac, people who create things that I like. That's been an incredible privilege to talk to those people.
what would you say the worst part of doing Vayse is, or your least favourite part?
I think that the bit that I struggle with the most is the public-facing bit. You know, because when we're recording, even though we're obviously recording a podcast and it's designed to be given to other people to listen to, it's very much just me and you, or me and you and one other person in a room when we're doing it, and that is the bit that's enjoyable for me. Then promoting it and talking about it afterwards I find more difficult, you know, and you know, like, I feel like I'm letting people down if I don't go on Discord and really talk it through, you know, and that kind of thing. I find that difficult because I'm quite bad at all that stuff in day-to-day life anyway, and I'm more of an introvert than an extrovert, and so that kind of thing, even though I do find it enriching, especially the Discord stuff, you know, like I love the Discord, I feel like I'm letting people down if I'm not on there all the time. But if I'm on there all the time, I get drained so quickly, and it takes so much out of me. And I think that is the hardest part, and it's also one of the best bits. That's what's weird about it, is it's one of the bits that I obviously need, but it's one of the bits that I don't think I'm good at.
I think like social media creates this thing where you almost give yourself this expectation of I need to engage and I need to make content and I need to do this and I need to do that, because
you feel like it's almost like a sort of microcosm of like a tiny microcosm of celebrity almost.
And like an obligation and stuff. But I think like the people that are on our Discord wouldn't expect that of you, you know, sort of people won't be thinking, oh my God, Hine hasn't told us what he's having for his breakfast today. What a letdown. These guys are rubbish. I don't think anyone will actually think like that. Like, I think, especially not people on our Discord, I think.
What do you think it is about that makes you uncomfortable? Like, what do you think it is that you don't like about it?
Well, like I said, being an introvert, I think it does drain me. But I think there's also, I think an element of it is probably self-consciousness as well. Because I think that if you think in a certain way, and I do suffer from anxiety, and I also have ADHD, which makes makes me overthink a lot as well. I analyze what I've written, basically, and once you put it out there, it is there to be reanalyzed. It's not like a conversation which just kind of floats away. But you can go back and think like, I was a dick then, you know, what was I talking about? You know, or I got that completely wrong, or whatever. And and that's the thing with social media as well, isn't it? I mean, once things are out there, they're out there, and you can't really.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, we were talking before about Sequoia and the episode with the AIs, and one of the things that I looked into when we'd just done that interview with Sequoia, and I was starting to look at AIs more seriously, and especially LLMs. One of the trends that was going around on social media was ask an LLM, like, what are the big ones, like ChatGTP or Gemini or Grok or Claude. Ask them, if you were the devil and you wanted to corrupt the young minds of today, what would you do? And basically they just outline, you know, that the idea that they would make everything convenient, that they would make everything instant, that they would glamorize the surface and take away the substance. And I'm paraphrasing. You can type it into an LLM. I mean, you could try them for free, and you can see what it actually says. But it basically, you would sort of infiltrate the minds of the youth with make it seem like there's no point in engaging and learning and all that sort of thing. It basically describes social media. Yeah. And this is from a creation of the internet itself, you know, or of processing power, you know, the LLM that's saying this. It has no reason to lie about that. And it has no stake in the game, you know, unless you're using like Llama or Meta's AI in whatever form,
Yeah.
where you have obviously a stake in the social media itself, but the LLMs have no reason to lie about that. They're only observing from what they can see from the entirety of human history that's been uploaded into them. And what they're seeing is this disengagement because of it felt very much like social media to me. I mean, like, it doesn't expressly say social media, but that's what it's like. The modern culture of everything being instant and everything being commodified, with minimum of effort. I think, and I do think that you can feel that. If you're sensitive, you can feel that when you're on social media. You can feel yourself being drained, and you can feel like your soul sort of depleting a bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But we're in that position where we sort of, as millennials, we sort of hit the middle, didn't we? In that, I mean, I didn't have an internet connection until I was about 16, and even then I could only use it like once a week by running a phone cable up the stairs
when
to my
no
bedroom.
one was on the phone. Yeah,
and we've seen the emergence in the last 20 years of social media and everything. So we kind of have the balanced view of both being a generation that's completely enraptured by it, but also knowing what it was like without it. Whereas our parents kind of missed out. I mean, they're probably all on Facebook now, but they kind of missed out on the full being enraptured in it. And the kids now, the Generation Z, and
they were raised by it.
Yeah, exactly. They've always had it, and so they don't know what it was like before. And so, I mean, I don't know, maybe our view will just one day be seen as completely outdated, but it does seem that way. And plus, this is what the LLMs are saying, and they're privy to the full range of, or as much as you can be. They know millions of times more than any one single person in the world knows. So I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but that is
it's okay.
That's the evil in the world anyway. Social media.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, that sounds all a bit Black Mirror, and Black Mirror set in the future. So, how about, what do you think the future of Vayse looks like?
Excellent segue there, Buckley.
A brilliant segue, very professional.
Yeah, I like that. Well, so that was one of the things that me and Buckley have been thinking about a lot recently, haven't we? Me and you. So I think that both of us have a short attention span in the way that we're restless, I think is a way to put it, in sort of creative projects. Definitely. And I think that, neither of us would have expected the other to want to just keep on doing the same unchanging format of thing. But that's not to say that we're not going to do podcasts or anything anymore, or that we're not going to do just interviews with people or episodes when it's just me and you. But I think that we both thought that we'd like to be able to branch out a little bit into other creative, but explore it through the lens of Vayse, like we did with the Halloween episode. Where we had a chance.
Fiction
episode. Exactly. We do a bit of fiction, but we do it very much through the lens of Vayse, and I think that, because we've got this album that we recorded a while ago, we've got other ideas of stuff. I think we'd both like to do a bit more fiction.
Definitely,
because we both enjoy that. Play to our strengths quite well, in that we like to tell each other stories, and I like to write, you like to mess with sound and stuff, and so audio dramas become a natural habitat for that kind of creativity. I mean, I'm never going to get sick of interviewing amazing creative people,
weird people.
And that's something. I mean, obviously we'll keep on doing this podcast, but we might not do it because we kept for at least 2.5 years. We kept quite a strict 2 a month, whereas I think that now we might not do 2 Vayses a month podcast episodes, but you can kind of rest assured that we're going to be working on something creative in the background. We've got a few ideas already, like ideas for guests, people we want to interview, but also ideas for audio dramas or other projects that we can do. And I think that we need to, we need to express to people, because we've already made the ideas in our mind, but we need to express the ideas that we want to be able to branch out and just explore other avenues of creative. It doesn't even need to be audio stuff, like we could do other types of thing with Vayse. I don't know, what's your view on it?
Well, pretty much the same, really. I mean, I think like we both kind of. I think an important thing in any creative endeavor is knowing when to stop or to change.
Yeah, or to let it evolve. I mean, the Bachelor said the exact same thing to us when we interviewed it. Like, don't be taken in by people's expectations of what you do by keeping it the same.
And it is hard. It is hard. Like, and I know this through like music stuff as well. Like, if I'm known for doing one particular thing, it is scary to do another thing, but also I want nothing more in the world to do that other thing, because that's where I'm at. And so, like, I think when we did the audio drama thing, it was a proper buzz. Like, we both really enjoyed it, and it felt like, this is something we want to do more of. But I think also kind of, it's just, I guess we're both, like you say, restless, and we both kind of, we have things that we kind of fixate on and get really into, and then we want to kind of work on them. But it is a bit scary because we feel like, people want from us
to be sort of kept in one place, in a box.
A nice cozy Vayse where it's Buckley and Hine interviewing, a person who does another podcast or a person who's written a book that they like, and asking them what they think reality is and how they got into weird stuff. And, I'll make a couple of like 1990s pop references, and Hine will mention 6 Ways, and I'll ask a stupid question at the end. And, and I feel like we're kind of, every so often we keep pushing outside of that, and we both really enjoy doing that. And it's like poking a wound or picking at a scab. It's like, you shouldn't do it, but it feels really, really good.
Yeah.
And like, I'm torn on it because I feel like, shit, are we letting people down because they want this from us? But that's not really how we should think, because we should think of it as art, and we should think of it as, and I'm sure like almost all of the artists we admire, and when I say artists, I don't just mean like musicians or painters or filmmakers. I mean like other people who, create podcasts, or like you were saying, like Doug Batchelor, and other people we've talked about, like Aidan or Joe Matheny or Sequoia, all of whom have created things that we admire, all of whom have had the bravery to say, right, I'm going to do this now. Even though
like
it's
Dara
not...
Mason with the Song of the Dark Man.
Yeah, exactly. Even though it's not like the thing that they're known for doing, like we're moving outside. We want to move outside of our box. We want to move outside of what you could sort of, in a horrible way, call our brand. But actually, what we're trying to say is that our brand will be something that moves, and that what defines us we will be defined by the fact that we are a multitude. We are not just one thing.
Yeah, Vayse isn't just a podcast.
It's like that band King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who, they'll like do 2 albums in one style, and they'll be like, right, we're going to do a country album now. And they'll do a country album. They're like, right, okay, we're going to do a black metal album now. And it's like, actually, on paper, that's a terrible business idea. And in terms of how the music industry works, because why would anyone like that? Why? But actually,
how do you promote that?
Yeah, but actually, that became the thing that they were known for. They became known for releasing a ridiculous amount of albums in a ridiculous amount of musical styles and having a really great time in doing so. And when I got into them, like fairly late to the game last year, I found that massively inspiring for both, like for a lot of things, and for my own music, but also for Vayse. It made me think like I'd love to just kind of almost follow our bliss, to follow that energy that we have, that enthusiasm we have, and not feel like tied down by expectations.
And the point is that we can carry on doing the podcast. It's just that we're going to be doing other stuff with the Vayse name, I think. And one thing, and I think that we should float this now, is that one of the things that we really want to do is collaborate with other creative people, but we need to be like hyper selective about it. So only if we could find a project to work on with someone that was our absolute bliss, that would justify us, because we make no money from Vayse, and we expect to make no money from the future ventures of Vayse.
No,
we will only work on ideas that are worth us putting our very limited precious time into. Because which is what we do with the podcast. We especially more recently, we record it when we're inspired to kind of do it, and and make sure it's something that we love. But also, I think some of the things that we wanted to cover on the podcast that we've talked about, I think we wanted to look at stuff that might even be even weirder, in a way that's sort of weird, not necessarily in the spookier stuff, but weird as in some of our micro obsessions or hyperfixations, because that's what we find interesting, and hopefully we can push it so far that it sort of comes full circle, and other people will finally find that stuff interesting as well. I
think to use a sort of neurodivergence terminology, we're unmasking. As a podcast, like we're sort of like, we've done this first 3 seasons, and we've made a few people like us by doing this one thing, but now we're going to sort of, the gloves are off. We're going to kind of show you a bit more of what we're about, and that might look quite chaotic, and it might look quite, and it won't just look chaotic, it will be chaotic. But that's showbiz, baby.
That's showbiz, baby.
Okay, so we usually ask our guests whether there's anything that they'd like to recommend to our listeners that might relate back to the conversation, or that might interest them or might relate to Vayse. Any books, films, TV shows, music, podcasts, anything you'd like to recommend?
So I think it's probably a bit late in the game now for me to be recommending Hellier and the podcast of Penny Royal.
The podcast of Penny Royal.
The podcast of Penny Royal, it gets its full title. But so what have I been watching? So Buckley recommended Ted Lasso, and I really enjoyed that.
Everyone should watch that.
It softens your heart.
It's just beautiful.
My heart grew 3 sizes watching that. And Reservation Dogs, I've just started on that, so
it will grow another 3 sizes after you've watched Resi Dogs. It's incredible. And Reservation Dogs does have a lot of Vayse adjacent material as it goes on as well, a lot of Native American spiritual stuff.
And while we're talking about the First Nations, the Dead Pioneers music, I've listened to a couple of their albums. They're on Spotify, absolutely incredible. And films, what have I watched recently? Warfare. Jesus Christ. That's a Alex Garland movie. And there's nothing weird about it. It's like the opposite of weird. It's just like an hour and a half or 2 hours of a kind of altercation as part of the Iraq War. I think they're in Iraq. 2006 anyway. I can't remember whether it's Iraq or Afghanistan, to be honest. And it's just brutal. It's the most brutal thing I've ever seen, but also the most arresting cinema experience I've ever had in my life. Like I didn't know if I'd be able to make it all the way through. My partner's never walked out of a movie before, and she had to leave because it was so intense, so anxiety inducing. It was incredible. I think everyone should watch that movie. We've talked about it before, but I've just read Crash by Ballard, I always love a bit of ballad. And I've been messing around with AIs inspired by Sequoia, and you can do that for free on the internet. So there's no excuse not to do that.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, no, I'll check some of that stuff out. And what's next for you?
Well, I think we've covered a lot of that. I'm also doing some music with my partner. She's an incredible singer, Gemma Rogers. You can find us. We're called Canvas Bodies. I'm working on some bits and pieces which are more Vayse adjacent. We'll hopefully have a video project coming soon that I'm working on with Mike Warburton, who takes the photos for Vayse. We'll hopefully have something to show for that soon. And yeah, I to be honest, I've not got a lot of free time to do anything else other than that. As we've said, there's going to be more weird stuff and more weird varieties coming from Vayse. And I mean, with all that, I don't really have a spare second of the day.
And where can people find you online?
Well, shall we say it together, Hine?
Yeah, okay then. Like 1, 2, 3.
And if you want more Vayse, you can find us on Twitter or Instagram. That's at Vayse, then Vayse spelled backwards, at VAYSEESYAV. We're on Blue Sky. I can't remember the exact details of that, but we'll be able to find it. You can go to our website, www.vayse.co.uk, where you'll get all of the episodes of Vayse, plus the show notes, which our friend Keith does. And he does an excellent job of it. And that's the only place that you can get the unabridged show notes. But you can find us on all podcasting platforms, all the major ones anyway. If you want to email us, if you've got any of your own weird stuff you want to talk about, there's vayseinfo@gmail.com is the best place to get us. You can get the first 2 volumes of the soundtrack to Vayse by our very own Mr. Stephen James Buckley under the name Polypores. And you can get that at Bandcamp. There's a link through from our website. And if you feel like you could spare us some money, you can do so at Ko-Fi. You can give us whatever you find in your heart to give us. But if you give a £5 recurring donation every month, you can join our Discord, which is just a brilliant place to be, as we were talking about earlier.
Brilliant. So, well, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Peter. It's been great to have you.
I've really enjoyed talking to you, and I hope that you'll join us again sometime.
Oh, yeah, no, well, thanks for having me. No, it's been a real weird time.
Tell me.
I think for all involved and probably all that are listening.
So, Peter, before you go, I've actually got one more question for you. What can listeners expect to hear in the next Vayse episode?
Next time on Vayse.
So, you know that egg UAP that Jacob Barber recovered? Yeah. I laid it.
Hine, 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 Hine. And it turned out anyway that I was Aleister Crowley's long lost granddaughter.
And I went frolicking through the fields without a care in the world.
And when I look back on it, my death seemed kind of comical.
And then Bigfoot told me exactly how tall he was, and well, it wasn't what I expected.
1, 2, 3.
Nick Poop.
And so it turns out that Young wasn't very young at all, I'm afraid.
I've never heard you do that before.
Listen, mister, this is a podcast.
So Gary Newman is actually 13 days older than Gary Oldman. And
please welcome tonight's guest, Mosif Jathini.
What would you rather be, or a wasp?
So basically, we crossed the streams. And then...
Do you believe in ghosts, Hine?
I do. But more importantly, I think they need to believe in themselves.
Welcome to Vayse, a podcast about 90s alternative rock.